Hey everyone, my name's Andy. I'm from the Finding Value Finance channel. I've got Andrew with me. I know him; he's local to me. So we used to work together. We worked at a company in aerospace, and we had similar jobs, and whatnot. So we'd always hang out and whatnot during lunch.
Yep.
But he just recently went through and purchased another house, and he wants to. I want him to describe the process that he went through in buying it and what he experienced and how tight the housing market is. At least this is just one data point amongst, obviously there's going to be more than just one data point, but just to see what the local market is doing where we're at. So Andrew, what'd you do? Why'd you decide to buy a house? What's going on there? And how was the market? What was your experience?
Yeah, for sure. Cool. Thanks for having me on, Andy. And for everyone else, I'm in the Discord. My tag there is I am the Amir. So if you see that handle talking, that's me in this channel. Again, we've talked before, Andy, obviously, but not to your audience about any of this. But for me, just expanding, because me and my wife want to have kids, right? And so we wanted to find a home that was a little bit more better suited for family and closer to both of our parents. And so we wanted to find a home to do that. And I wanted to pull that trigger maybe 2 years ago, right? And because, just talking to you through our lunches before the channel was made and everything, I just knew it was a good idea to buy another home. I could just see, we both saw the writing on the wall. But, going through getting married and everything kind of made an adjustment. It was like, okay, maybe we should wait a little bit until we can find out. And I deployed. So it's kind of hard to buy a house when you're deployed, and COVID and just all those things. So we waited until February. That was our game plan. Our strategy was, let's wait till the new year and then we'll start looking. And obviously we wanted to stick with that strategy. Don't FOMO into things. Don't FUD into things. We had a strategy, just go with it. And so even though house prices were crazy, January of 2022 came around. We were like, all right, let's start looking. And so that's when we started looking. And I think we went through a couple of open houses in February, met with our real estate agent, got our loan. And then by early March, we were under contract with a new house. That's kind of the timeline right there. So I'm talking, this was 2 months ago that when we closed, or 2 months ago is when we went under contract. And so all this stuff is really fresh to me. And I think that because the sample size of people that have purchased a home recently is so small, everything to me, every time I'm watching these articles or reading articles or watching YouTube channels, it's never from people that just went and experienced buying a home. It's through people that already own a home, or it's through people that don't own a home that says everything is whack. Well, what about the person that actually went through it? Because based off of inventory levels, that's like what? A very, very small percentage of people that have gone through that in the last 6 months. Well, I'm one of them, and I'm happy to share my opinion. So that's kind of where we are now, Andy.
Yeah. So you bought back in like 2017 or
18.
something.
Yep.
2018, because it was right around when I bought.
Yep.
Because we all kind of bought at the same time.
Yeah,
right?
we did. Yeah.
And so you bought back then. You wanted to buy another house. You're going to rent out your old one.
Yep.
From what I understand. And you bought a house that's literally like within a mile of where I live, maybe even a half mile.
Yeah, we're really close. Yeah.
Yeah. So obviously you chose the right location. Wink, wink. Because I'm there.
Yeah. Hey, and no, not just that. There's a reason for that. And again, I mean, maybe this is a good place to go on a tangent too. But you did a video on this of an article where a home builder who's been building homes for 40 years was saying that there's two ways they're building homes. They're either demolishing current homes within the city, or they're building outside and further away from the city. Well, I know where you live. You know where I'm going to start living. We're kind of in the city. That is going to be prime real estate in the next 10, 20, 30 years as our city continues to expand, really only east and north, because that's all, and south, but it's on the east side of our town. It's the only place they can build, and no one wants to live there. So what's going to happen? Real estate's going to go up in the area, the prime area locations, but no one uses that as a metric. Well, people do, but normal people don't do it.
So I told you this a while back. We would sit in the car and talk back and forth over lunch or whatever. The most valuable spot, I think, in Colorado Springs, at least to me, and I think this will be for a lot, is a place. Well, let's first describe Colorado Springs just real quick for the viewers, because a lot of people don't know this. In Colorado Springs, there's like two roads that start at the top at the north, and then they split and go around going north and south. And then there's a billion roads going east and west, but they're all like super slow.
Yep.
So if you want to go through like the heart of Colorado Springs, it's super hard to go east to west quickly. So there's very few roads that go east and west very quickly. The prime buying spot where we live, in my opinion, is to live on the north end, where you can go to 25 in 2 seconds, and you can go to Powers in 2 seconds.
Yep.
And then you can go north and south. In the middle of it, going off Union and there's other streets that you can hit to go straight down the middle of Colorado Springs. Everywhere else, you have long driving time to go anywhere else. You can't go east and west very quickly. So living up north, you've got multiple roads that are 45, 55 miles an hour that you can just like kind of haul east and west on.
Yep.
Everywhere down south, even in the middle of the city, you get stuck with a billion lights, really slow traffic speeds and everything. So when I look at Colorado Springs and being to the north end, you can also travel to Denver very quickly.
Yep.
You're in the best location as long as you find a spot that's in the middle, north middle, and you can go east, west, north, south, and you go to Denver as quickly as possible. So from a logistics standpoint, I think, in my opinion, the best locations are North Colorado Springs. And it just so happens that's where all of the white collar type jobs, the better schools, the school districts are rated very high. The incomes are usually higher, the crime's lower, so on and so forth. So everything kind of aligned for me. And that was the reason I bought where I did, just because it made sense from an entirety, a holistic approach of looking at everything.
Yep.
So you bought this house that's real close to me. What was the process? How did it go through? How many buyers did you encounter? That type of stuff.
Did I tell you those details yet?
No.
Okay. So for our town, at least back then, I think it's pretty similar right now. This is what happens. It is a Thursday of the week hits, and that's when all the sellers put their house on the market. For the next day, they have an open house, and it's by appointment. They don't just leave the house open to let anyone walk in. It's by appointment, 30-minute windows. They do that on Friday, they do that on Saturday, and they do that on Sunday. By Monday evening, if you don't have an offer in, they won't accept your offer. Tuesday, they pick the winner. But Hosey, we're in a bubble. No, are you kidding me? And sure enough, it like clockwork. 3 years ago, my agent, I continued getting emails from him. And my agent kept giving me emails. And every day I would wake up on my smartphone and I'd be like, oh, another 4 houses. Oh, another 4 houses. Oh, another 4 houses every day. Just in this past year, you only get those emails on Thursday. And by the next week, it's gone. And so I'm looking, keep that model in mind. And so sure enough, I see a house I like on that Thursday. And I tell my agent, I'm like, okay, we got to go look at it. And he goes, okay, blah, 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 blah. We're texting, whatever. And he goes, there's like 4 hours of a showing on Sunday that's only available. And I was like, what? And he goes, can you do Sunday at 11 a.m.? And I'm like, yeah, sure. Let's do it. And so we had to work around both of our schedules because he goes to church and I go to church. And so we had to find a timeline that worked out for both of us. And we go and we look at it. And, you only get 30 minutes, right? That's not a lot of time to really look at a home that's bigger than 2,000 square feet and really understand if it's worth it. And so we go over there, we look at it. And I go, my wife wasn't even with me. She was in Albuquerque. And I'm like trying to talk to her on the phone and all these kinds of things and explain the situation. And we said, screw it. Let's give him an offer, right? Well, we give the offer. Well, let's rewind, right? There was over 55 showings. The house hits the mark.
In 2 days, 3 days, you said? 2, 3 days?
Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Actually, you know what? It may have just been a Saturday, Sunday for that particular home. So the house comes on the market Thursday. By Sunday, they show the house 55 times over the course of 2 days. That is bonkers. That is absolutely insane. On our way out of the house, there was already another agent with his client waiting for us to get out. And so we do all that. We put down our offer. Tuesday morning, my agent calls me. And by the way, of course, he goes, the house is this much. It was, and he goes, what's your escalation clause? Because that's required at this point. He goes, you're not going to get the house for what it's cost. So you might as well put in an escalation cost. I put a 10% escalation cost on this home. right? So think of it as if the house was 500 grand, I put a 50 grand buffer on it.
Mm-hmm.
And so I get a call back on Tuesday morning and he goes, "Hey, you're in the top 3." I'm like, "Are you serious?" He goes, "Yeah, I think you've got a really good shot at doing this." And he tells me, he goes, "What they want to see from you is your bank statements that prove you actually have the down payment you claim you have." Because we had a sizable down payment.
Mm-hmm.
And you know why? Because we have to compete against cash buyers and you have to compete against everyone else that has sizable down payments. You know how many offers? You want to guess?
I think you told me that.
Okay.
18?
Including us, there was 15 offers
15
in one weekend. This was 2 months ago, people. This wasn't 2 years ago. And it has slowed down a little bit from what I've been hearing from agents, but not to the point where you, like when we bought our house 4 years ago, right?
Yeah.
I don't know how your experience was, but I'm assuming it was similar to mine, where I walked up to a house that's been on the market for 25 days. I said I wanted it, and then I got it like the next day. No one fought against me.
Well, you had a specific instance that you got lucky on though with your first house, I think. Because
it was pretty lucky.
When I tried buying, I kept competing with a whole bunch of people and I couldn't get stuff. So what I did is I said, okay, I'm going to go up in price. So I just kept going up in price until I got to a house that was higher than whatever, where all the, I'll call it like it, the way that I felt when I was going through the market. And obviously they talk about home buyer sentiment. My sentiment was absolutely horrible towards the home buying experience myself. And my sentiment was very low because every time I tried to look at a house, there was like 800 billion people in there looking at it. So I'd go in there and they're like, "Oh, well, this house already has 15 offers on it." I'm like, okay, I there's no way I'm going to compete with 15 or 16 different offers. And that was like the first day of the first showing. And there was probably going to end up with 50 or 60 offers. So I was like, I can't bid and get a house anything under 300,000 because there was just too many people. It was like, it was like piranhas in this water. You'd throw like a little piece of food in there and the piranhas would just grab it. And I'm like,
how much? Under what price?
It was under 300 back in 2017 is when I was looking. So, because I looked for like a year almost. So I was like, I can't compete there. So I went up to 350, 360, 370. And then even there, they were still getting like 10, 15, 20 offers. So I was like, I can't compete here. So I went up into the 400s. And then, so I was looking at the 400s and I could probably buy a house in like, much higher than even that. But I was just looking and the competition was much lower in the 400s. So I was like, okay, I'm just going to go in the 400s and buy a house there just because one, I can obtain it. And the value was much better there because I didn't have the competition to drive the prices higher. And the house was a much larger house. And the condition of most of these homes were in a lot better condition. So plus I could get a really good location too. So I was like, there's some positives here. So I had to go up in price in order for me to obtain the house, just period. It's down in the 300s. It was like sharks eating other sharks, eating fish, eating. It's like, I don't even want to do it.
And you know what? And that is why we're never going to see those prices again.
No, you're never going to see them. I don't even think, in my honesty, I don't even think you'll ever see even in like the 4s or 500s here again.
And this
They're
is
going to go completely extinct after this.
And this is why the affordability argument doesn't work. It just doesn't work because if home prices took a 10% dip compared to where they are right now, if a 500 grand home went for 450, there's someone out there waiting for the crash that's going to FOMO into that buy. They're not going to let prices dip less than 10% or more than 10%. Because the moment it comes down, they're like, finally, this is happening. The home price went from 500 to 450. I need to buy it now. And so the buyers are going to come back alive. And so the idea that everyone as like this giant community is just going to wait for home prices to get back down to the 350s before they buy, that is not how markets work. It doesn't work that way.
Well, so the house next door to me was renting their place for $3,200 a month.
Wow.
I obviously my cost is way, way, way lower than that.
Yeah.
But if I was stuck in that scenario where I had to rent my house for $3,000 something a month, I would be out there ferociously trying to buy because I can't see myself renting for 10 years at those types of levels. I would
Yep.
want to lock in my cost and not be subject to the rent price increase that these people are experiencing. But that's me, and I have the ability to do that. Now, a lot of people say that millennials can't afford homes, but I know many millennials making hundreds of thousands of dollars a year combined income.
Yep.
Many, not just one. I'm talking most people that I know either already own a house that's a millennial, own multiple houses, or make hundreds of thousands of dollars a year. All of them, my brother included, myself included, everyone that I know. And I'm thinking, well, where are these poor millennials that everyone's talking about? And I'm sure there are millennials that don't make a lot of money, but I know a lot of people who also are millennials that make a lot of money. I'm sure Mark Zuckerberg's making quite a bit of money.
Well,
but I just don't see how prices are going to fall at all. Like, we're not even close. There's way too many buyers.
so if I can interject on that really quick, I got a friend. She's a millennial. She's getting married. They're both engineers. I think their net income is, together, they're both engineers. Probably, let's just say 180. Both of them combined are somewhere 180. They're like in their late 20s, and they don't have any kids. They're thinking about taking jobs up in Denver and moving to Denver. And she was complaining about the home prices for a house in downtown Denver, which is like $800,000. And she told me, this is insane. It's unaffordable. How can this be? And I look at her and I tell her, right, kindly, right? And I said, a downtown home in Denver was never meant to be affordable for a new couple at 26 years old.
Right.
Of course it's unaffordable for you. You're 26. There's someone who's 46, whose kids are getting ready to leave the nest, who is like, hey, let's move to downtown wherever we want because we're 46, dual income, no kids, and we've been saving and investing in the stock market. We can buy this up in a heartbeat. They're probably both making 130 a year if you're at that age and you have a stable career. So it's easy. So the affordability argument that I keep seeing everywhere tends to come out of people that are in their 20s. I've never heard someone in their 40s say that their home mortgage is unaffordable, or someone in their 50s. They look at it and they go, oh, this is, if I had to buy a new house today, I could. I mean, I got plenty of disposable income. I'm in my 50s. I'm in the peak of my career. I've got a lot saved up. And so I think the affordability thing is just coming. And, I've seen your videos with Scott where he talks about the affordability index compared to Australia, New Zealand, and Spain. It's not even close. It's not even close. And you know what? The 40-year mortgage is just around the corner. I would not be surprised if that kicks in and this whole cycle kind of restarts again, where prices just continue to climb because just extend the loan. That's what they're doing with cars. So why not do it with homes?
Yeah. So I know a couple of people at work. They are also dual income, 25, 26, 27. They're probably somewhere make 180, maybe 200,000 or something like that. And they're looking, and what they want to do, and this is what they described, is they want to go directly to their dream house. They want to go directly to they want to skip out all of the first time home buying steps and go straight to a house that they want to live in for 20 plus years and have kids in and everything like that. And what they tell me is, well, that house is like 800,000 or 700,000 at this time. And I'm like, I don't know what to tell them. you're only 26, 27 years old.
Thank you.
It's hard to go straight to an $800,000 house from having nothing some, 5-6 years ago in college. So I think maybe unrealistic expectations is going to meet reality and merge right there. And, most people don't walk into a 3,000 or 4,000 square foot house and have it be their end all be all right out of college. So yep. I think that's just reality smacking these people in the face. I also think that the affordability, I don't think it's necessarily a big deal, because if so many people are trying to buy a house, that means that only a few percent of the available buyers are going to be able to get the house. So if there's only a few percent, we're not talking about people in home buying years with good incomes. We're talking about the top incomes fighting for whatever's left.
Right.
So it's the top 1% or 2% of people that are getting the homes. Everyone else is priced out, because that's how that's how short we are, or a deficit in the housing market, at least here. And I'm sure it's like that in some other places as well. So the affordability should be so bad right now that would be the reflection of what the market is actually showing and telling us. It's not that affordability is going to limit the market. The unaffordability, that should shoot way off to unaffordable, because what's happening is everyone's bidding with all the money they've got to try to get it. Well, not all the money they've got, but with a lot more money than what they normally would in a slower market. So, so you got the house, right?
Mm-hmm.
Did you have to pay over the asking price?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So the agent calls me back and he goes, when he said you were in the top 3, and I go, oh, awesome. And he was like, yeah, I'm going to try to fight for you. Give me all the documentation. Give me everything you got that shows that you have these funds, and we'll submit it. He goes, this isn't normal, but you're in a seller's market, so you have to do these things. We do that whole back and forth. And eventually he calls me back and he goes, congrats, man, you did it. I'm like, no way. And I said, what was the final price? And he goes, oh, so like say the 10% was 50 grand, right? 47 grand. There was only 3 grand of buffer from what and it's funny too, because I'm not, me and my wife had our strategy. We're buying a house at the beginning of 2022. So when we weren't trying to overthink it, we're not trying to time the market. We just said, screw it, we're doing it. So when I told him, in this theoretical value, the numbers are close, right? They're not exact, but the numbers are close. When I said 50 grand over, it was just a spitball. I didn't know any better. Like, it's not like I was trying to, crunch the numbers and say, oh, 48.5 grand or 52.5. I just said 50 grand, screw it. If it happens, it happens. Let's see what happens. I didn't even think we were going to win. And sure enough, yeah, we did it, just with barely, almost completely maxed out what we got. We do the inspection. And while doing the inspection was when we really had a lot of time to look at home. And it's like, I knew it needed work, but during the inspection was when I was like, wow, it needs a lot more work than I originally thought. I actually have the whole next week off of work because I'm doing remodeling, because I still have about 3 weeks before renters come into the house that I'm in right now. So that gave me the time. We also have a lot of cash saved to do some remodeling work. So new countertops, new carpet, going to paint the walls. Some of the rooms need new trim. I mean, there's a lot of work that has to go into this. And 14 other people wanted to buy that house because of the location, because there's a shortage, all of those things combined. And here's another thing too. Interest rates didn't matter to us. I mean, look, we did get lucky, right? So when we got our loan was as soon as Russia invaded Ukraine. So it dropped and we somehow got 3.9%. I understand it's like 6% now, but when I looked into the mortgage calculator, as 6% versus a 4% on our current mortgage would have rose the price by like $400 a month payment. Look, that's substantial, right? But it's not unaffordable to my income. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean, right? Like, if someone told me for me to keep my house, I would have to pay an extra $1,000 a month, I can most certainly afford that. I have that. I understand that's not true about every family, but there's a lot of families out there that can absorb that cost of that extra $1,000 a month. It's all about, you have your top earners that can buy a house, and every time it's unaffordable, you're shrinking your top earners of who can buy that place.
Yes.
And until you shrink it to the point where no one can buy a home, the price won't match. The price is going to continue to go up. It's got to match the buyers. The supply and demand have to match. So just because it's unaffordable for a majority of America, doesn't mean it's unaffordable for the people that can actually afford it based off of the ratio of the amount of inventory that's available. That's the only thing that matters.
Yeah, available buyers versus what your supply is.
Absolutely.
That's all that matters. Now, I don't know, I didn't tell you this, and I actually kind of forgot about it, but since you were talking about things, I've received 2 letters in my mailbox saying that people want to buy my house.
No kidding.
Yeah. and I'm like, I don't think so.
No, bye.
Good luck.
Where are you going to move? Where are you going to go?
Well, that's exactly the problem. That's exactly the problem, because the housing market here is so short that I probably, if I were to do it, I'd have to go into a house that is far more expensive, like $1 million plus. I'd have to go in that range for the housing market where I'm like, because before it was like the cutoff was like 400s, like 450, 440. That's where like the buyers kind of stopped. Then you have to go, like now it's probably like 880, 900, because it's somewhere in that range up there where buyers start to really thin out. And it's almost like impossible to get anything where in the range that you did, because you got to put an escalation clause. You got to, basically cross your fingers and cross your toes and hope that 50 grand or 70 grand can get you the house over asking price. But everyone on the internet, if you were going by them, they would say, well, that's the housing market's ready to crash. It's totally crashing out. And I'm like, where? At least not where I know. Minneapolis is going crazy, where all my people are at, my friends and family. Indiana's going crazy where my other family's at. Like, it's going crazy, like just like here. They're spending 30, 40, 50 grand over $200,000 something homes and $300,000 homes. It's going crazy on the West Coast. They're 2.5 million homes underbuilt from 2030 or some ridiculous thing, and everyone's leaving there. And I mean, you look around, it's like, where are these homes? Where are these people taking these copious amount of drugs, coming on YouTube and saying that we're in a housing bubble?
It's not in this town. Not at least. I mean, of course, I can't speak for the nation, but from what we've seen, I just the demand is too high compared to the inventory levels. And you know what? I think people screw up when they try to make a home a different kind of asset or investment vehicle or commodity or object compared to other things that are out there. If you look at a home as for example, a really expensive car, right? It does not matter the price of that expensive car. There's buyers out there. It might not be you, right? You might not be able to afford it, but the price of that expensive car is going to remain the price of that expensive car because there's only so many of them, right? Let's just look at a Rolls Royce. If they only make 100, or let's go to shoes. They make 100 special Jordan shoes or Nike shoes, and these things are selling for like 10 grand on eBay because they're so rare. Someone's going to buy them. Houses are the same way. If that inventory level is down, the shoes, there's only 100 shoes, but a lot of people want to buy collector shoes. They're going to pay 10 grand for a pair of shoes. They're willing to do that for shoes. What do you think they're going to do for a shelter?
Well, I mean, I don't know what I would do personally, because if I'm over there renting and my rent's at $3,000 a month, I'd be like, oh God, I would feel defeated.
Yeah,
I would feel defeated. But that's also why I positioned why I did back in the day, because I was like, I got to get in a house now, lock in the rate. And if we get lower interest rates, because I thought we were going to get a housing market crash or a stock market crash at some point, that they would lower rates. They lowered rates and I refinanced. And now I'm like,
it would be, and that's going to, you touched on this a little bit, that's going to destroy inventory levels even more, because who out there locked in at under 3%, which is both of us for the house I got right now. Why would any of us sell our home right now? To relocate to a home with a loan of at 6%, 7%, 8% if it keeps going up? So that's only going to affect inventory even more. It's going to get to the point where the only homes that are selling are new homes.
Yeah. Well, so talking about that, so I know maybe 4 or 5 people, they've saved hundreds of thousands of dollars. They're waiting for the market to slow down or whatever. That's their decision. I know another person who just bought a new house. He bought the house. It's like 2,000 something square feet, 555, 575, somewhere in that range. I think it was what it was. I mean, I don't try to pick and pry and see what the exact pricing was, but it's somewhere around that. It's somewhere around that area. Now the question then is, and that's where he locked in a while. He was building this from last year. If the prices continue to go up, and that is basically the gateway for new homes to get into the system to expand the housing supply. If the price is $600,000, $700,000, $800,000, $900,000, $1 million, I don't see how prices of existing homes are just going to crash and collapse if you can't bring new homes in for anything near an existing house. And then in this city, and you brought it up before, the location of the homes that they're building that are new are mainly east. And I'll be honest, I'm not very intrigued by living on the east side of it, of the city out there. And all of the good houses that I consider to be a good location are going to catch huge premiums in 10 years. I'm talking massive premiums because one, they've got developed lots with mature trees. You're in a really good location. You can go east, west, north, south, and that's going to become ultra valuable with time. So that's my take on it, at least. Maybe I'm wrong.
I don't think so.
living way out east in the new house, the way that they're building these homes too, I don't know if you've seen some of these new homes. They are literally putting them right next to each other.
Yes.
It's like a game of Tetris that they fit in here and moved all these homes.
You can pee on your neighbor's house from your window. Like they're that close.
And they're
it's
like
insane.
they're like 700,000 or 800,000. I'm like, why would I spend 700,000 or 800,000 to live literally right at your next door neighbors? Like, you know, you're facing them like this close together, and you're just staring at each other. Like,
like if you've got any military members in your audience, it's a lot like military housing. So I grew up military, and so military housing is a lot like that, because what happens is the military gets a plot of land, and they're told your entire division has to live there. And so they just start building homes as close as they can. There's so many duplexes and triplexes. And when you don't have them, even if you have duplexes, they're like Tetris fitting into each other, because the developers are like, how can we maximize the amount of land or amount of homes in our acreage? And so because they sell the homes. And so that's what they're doing out east and they're doing it everywhere, right? Because there's a housing shortage everywhere. So they're just building up as many homes as they possibly can on 1 acre. What used to maybe be like 8 homes per acre is now up to like 20. I don't know if those are exact figures, but I'm painting a picture for everyone, right? It's getting so dumb out there. So dumb.
When I look at it, and this is my opinion, I look at the homes and how close they're put and how much they cost and everything. But the first thing that comes to my mind when I drove through some of these areas is they ruined this land. They literally ruined it. Like, I don't know why anyone would want to live here. That's my opinion. Like, I looked and I'm like, all you see. So we on ours, we kind of have hills and stuff. And if you go behind Target, north of Powers, they have this new development. You can go all the way to the top. And what you do is you can look back down. All you see are rooftops everywhere. We're talking like there's got to be thousands of homes built, and all you see are just rooftops everywhere as you look down. There's no like big gaps or anything. In Minnesota, you can't do that because you have all these trees, you have swamps and ponds and water. So it breaks everything up. In Colorado, you can just go, to the wall of just pumping these things all next to each other. And then there's the infrastructure that they've designed in Colorado Springs on the east side is garbage. So basically you have to go through like 2 or 3 roads, and like everybody's trying to go through them. So you've got like Black Forest and Dublin, which just gets massive traffic during certain periods of time. And it's really only those areas where I'm like, wow, I don't want to go east on Woodman to Black Forest because it just gets kind of nasty. And it's not that bad. We're still a small city, but I could imagine 10 years from now that just becomes a huge limiting factor for traffic. So.
No, those are all key points. And it reminds me of when I flew over LA, when I landed in LA, you look down the window and it's just a grid square of homes. Phoenix is a lot like that. Las Vegas is a lot like that, where it's just, you get these land developers and they're like, let's just build wall to wall, or land or home developers that are just like, let's build wall to wall to wall to wall. Another point too, you just said it, was you had friends building a home. I had a friend that bought property up north, a little bit out of the city, with about 3 acres. And her and her husband put a pause on their building because lumber got too expensive. And that got me thinking, and me and you have talked on the phone about it before too, which is if the market is going to be new homes, because anyone with a home right now doesn't want to sell it. So most homes coming into inventory are going to be new homes. The number one, what determines the cost of a new home is the input cost and the production cost of that home. So let's just go over some major input costs of a new home. So you're going to have energy, obviously. You're going to have labor, which is kind of a form of energy if you think about it. And then you're going to have all the commodities that go into a home. So you're going to have lumber, which is the number one of it all. You're going to have concrete, and then you're going to have like copper for the copper and stuff like that.
Yeah, they use some different piping now.
Yeah, it's like a PVC.
But for natural gas piping, yeah, it's
all the piping in the home.
Oh man, what's the name of that? I can't even.
I don't know.
Now.
I got it in the new place though. Yeah.
Plex, something Plex. I can't remember.
Oh, and then of course drywall, paint, all these different input costs for that home. So let me ask you a question, Andy. If a home that is 2,000 square feet in Colorado Springs goes for $500,000, however, let's fast forward a year. If all the input costs to build a 2,000 square foot home equates to $600,000 because of the rising prices of things, Is that home builder then going to look at old homes and go, well, a 2,000 square foot home costs 500 grand. So now, even though it cost me 600 grand to build this home, I'm going to sell it for 500 grand to match the market. The answer is no. The market doesn't decide the price of new homes. The cost of building a new home determines the price of a new home. And so if we ever get to those levels where the price of new homes to be built because of the increasing cost of labor and energy and commodities, if that costs $1 million, guess what? You're paying $1.1 million because they got to make a profit. Mm-hmm. That's going to only raise prices even more.
Yeah. I agree. It'll raise it to where people can't afford. But the problem is, if you don't have enough homes, I don't know where they're going to stay. They're going to have to double up, triple up in homes. I like literally, we have so many people here that I don't know what some of these people are going to do.
I don't know.
You were in a really good situation because you already had a house to begin with. It's not like you're pressured to you were not pressured to leave a rental. You weren't pressured like, I have to be out of here by some time, or someone said, you're living in my house, I'm going to sell it, you got to leave. There was none of that pressure where you were actually going to get pressured into a situation. But some of these people are under massive pressure.
Yep.
And the question then becomes, I can't find a rental. I need to buy. I've got 2 months left. How much are you willing to pay to find shelter if you can't find a rental? I mean, it's like you're either out on the street or you got to leave, this entire city in its entirety. And I never wanted to be under that pressure again. I was like, I'm done with that renting stuff. Get me into a house, lock in the mortgage rate, get me out of here. And now, I mean, I would consider buying another place if a deal came up, but I'd probably do it maybe up north or something, which it would cost even more money. But
those deals would be hard to find up north. But that's exactly what my agent told me. My agent was like, hey, yeah, most buyers right now are in a similar position to you. They're either they have a house that they plan on keeping, so there's no rush if they lose a home. Like if they lose the bid, oh well, right? They just bid again. Or B, they're on a rental. Or C, they're an out-of-state buyer with cash. Mm-hmm. And he says those are the three buyers. He says the idea of someone selling their home to buy another home in the same city, he says those people are far and few between. They're like non-existent right now. So all the buyers right now are like, if you want, I don't know, top 10% of convenience for them, if you will, they're like top 10% of applicants right now, or top 20%. Mm-hmm. They're the ones buying, and it's going to stay that way because those people always exist. I mean, Zuckerberg just probably bought $100 million home, right? Clearly, like there's going to be people like that at a lower level, right? Not Zuckerberg billions, but there's people that make plenty of money that can easily afford $1 million home right now. It's just not me.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yep. No, I agree. And if the commodity markets go up, hopefully the members on the Finding Value website will be able to buy $1 million homes for themselves. Yeah. So, do you have anything else to add about your experience or anything like that, or any other comments that you have?
Let me see if I can think back to what we experienced. Oh yeah, the seller. Talk about the most unreasonable to the point of being a jerk because they can. But I mean, any little thing that was so another thing too, right? In the agreement was called a rent back agreement. And apparently what my agent said was 90% of homes that are selling right now have rent back agreements. What a rent back agreement is that I bought the house, I closed on the house in April, and in the contract, it says she was allowed to stay till June because she was waiting for her house to wrap up. The house that she was going to move to needed to wrap up. And guess what? No rent. There was no rent in that clause. So she stayed in that house for a month for free. We paid the mortgage. She stayed in it for free. That was part of the contract. And 14 people still bid on it. On top, not just that, but when they did finally move out, she ended up moving out early. So good for us, right? We managed to occupy the house earlier. When she finally did move out, there was a lot more damage on the house than we thought. There was some move out damage. Just on the floors, the walls, the trim, just some additional damage that wasn't there before. We contacted the agent. The agent told us to pound sand. Nothing we can do about it. Why? It's a seller's market. They can do anything they want.
This is more than a seller's market.
Yeah, way more.
This is crazy. That's what it is. And I know a lot of people think that these markets just change on a dime, but they don't. It takes a long time. And the demographic that's coming through with the millennials, I think will last another 5-10 years. So it's going to be tight for a while. I think that's my take on it. So I think the 2020s will be a tight market.
Yeah, and let's not live in our own little bubble in the United States either, right? We have to recognize that there's a global demand for all these things. Global demand. The United States is just one tiny variable when you compare it to China and India and Southeast Asia. And so when you think of the energy crisis and what can happen at a global level, we can't just look at the United States and think that, oh, because of affordability here, affordability there, it's going to slow down. Well, I mean, you got an entire other, like 8 billion people that play a role into the supply and demand of things. Now, not necessarily housing, right? This how someone lives in India is not going to affect the price of homes in Colorado. But in terms of what the price of commodities is, which are the input costs for everything you do to build a house, India and China most certainly do have a major play in those things. And so that's something I got to remind myself too, is that what I see in terms of supply and demand for what's happening in the United States for energy, not necessarily true for the rest of the world who does decide what the price of those commodities is going to be, or at least have a variable in it.
Yeah, I also think that there's foreign buyers too, where anywhere that is very desirable to live in the world, just in general, if you've got a lot of money, you're like, well, where are the most desirable places to live in the world? And they may buy multiple homes, one or a few in not really Colorado or California, but just in United States in general.
Like Seattle.
Maybe they want something in Canada, maybe they want something wherever they have. And, having the end game isn't to have a bunch of money, because money, you want to convert that into something. You want to convert it into a usable thing. You want to convert it into an experience. You want to convert it to something. The end game isn't to have a bunch of dollars. The dollars are there and they're debt. Debt is a repayment of something in terms of something else. So that repayment is a final payment in XYZ. It could be real estate. It could be some other thing that you want to use, a car, whatever it is. So the dollars that people have and the money that they've printed in the system goes into these accounts, and you want to convert it to something. And that conversion of that dollar or debt has to go somewhere. And if your dollar is becoming less valuable, I'd rather tie it up in real estate or something else than I would in just keeping it. There's no point in keeping it.
Yeah. And I do think that's what's happening. We're watching the stock market go down. We're watching bonds get dumped. And so what does that mean, right? It's not just value doesn't just disappear. If the stock market and the bonds are going down, when there's volume, which there is volume, it means people are selling. So if people are selling, it means they're getting cash. So if they're selling their stocks and they're dumping their bonds and it's going into cash, what are they doing with their cash? Either they're holding on to cash to invest it into a new vehicle, which we think is going to be commodities, right, in the next couple of years, or B, they're buying real estate. It's not like this cash is just disappearing, because there is volume happening within these trades, which means people are going to cash. Where's the cash going to go? I mean, I see it as going to homes. So there's probably people in their 40s that have been investing in the stock market for the last 20 years that have 300 grand in a brokerage account. They're like, all right, you know what? I'm going to sell everything and buy another house. That's a huge down payment for a place. Or they're going to wait and they're going to be like, oh, you know what? I got a cash position because there's fear in the market. People are going to sell. They're going to keep that cash in their brokerage account. And then they're going to decide, do I buy the dip or do I invest in something else? Crypto is the same way. Crypto is getting dumped. The price of Bitcoin didn't just go down 50% just for the heck of it. It went down 50% because people are selling it, which means people have cash.
Yep. They're converting to cash and then they convert it to something else. I store my wealth in commodities. That's basically what I've decided. And it's just because we know, I say we've talked a lot about it and the cycles and all this stuff. So identifying the cycles before other people figure it out is the whole name of the game. So to be a contrarian, you have to kind of buy when everyone's telling you you're stupid, and you buy it and everyone else is partying over there in the other room because, they're seeing a 10%, last move in crypto or something. And they're calling everyone else, you need to buy crypto. You need to buy crypto. And that's when you're like, nah, I'm good.
Yep.
Like, you guys can have my crypto shares or whatever it is. So yeah, that's where I store my wealth, is in commodities and precious metals and right now real estate. So
there you go.
So I appreciate.
I'll take the asymmetric bet in all these things before I go back and buy something that's overvalued in crypto and the stock market right now.
Agreed. I totally agree. So Andrew, I really appreciate you coming on and sharing your experience and being open enough to tell everyone your experience with the home buying process. And hopefully the house is everything that you want it to be after you fix it up.
Yeah, let's see how the next week goes of a lot of back pain and knee pain and work. So we'll get it done though. I like doing that stuff anyways.
Are you putting in like new cabinets or something or
no, luckily the cabinets are pretty decent. I did cabinets for the last house and I'm never sanding that much cabinetry ever again. But no, it's gonna be new paint, which is really easy. Carpet people are coming out on Thursday. All the trim either needs to be restained with Restore Finish, which is pretty good stuff, or I pulled out the trim. I'm gonna put new trim in there. And then some of the flooring needs to be fixed too. It's that vinyl flooring, so you can pull out one piece and put in another piece. It's pretty easy to do. So, luckily the damage that I saw was mainly cosmetic, right? And so that's what I was looking for. It was like, okay, if the damage to the house is mainly just cosmetic, something I know I can fix, then I'm okay with it. And that's really all I've been able to find. So that's good.
Okay, good. All right. Well, thanks for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
We'll see you next time then.
All right. Thank you.
See you, everybody.